everybody? It's Steiner here with another episode of Secondhand Talent. We have an incredibly special guest with us today, the collaborator of our very own Secondhand Talent patches, Miss Laurel Bayleaf.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
No problem. I'm happy to be here.
Just to introduce Laurel a little bit, Laurel creates, for the most part, Ween fan art. She does patches. She helped create these incredible Dr. Decibel secondhand talent patches that are available at www.secondhand sorry, secondhand talent patches that are available at www.secondhandtalent.com. And she also created every single patch that I am wearing on this hoodie. I call it my Laurel hoodie. Um, Laurel, it's super cool to have you on the show because fabric has always been a passion of mine. I like wearing, as our viewers know, different shirts on every episode, different hats on every episode. And I remember, I think one of the first patches I ever got from you was this "Don't Believe the Florist" patch. And after that, like that was it. That was it. Like I just fell down the rabbit hole and covered myself completely in patches. So, again, thank you so much for being on the show. And I guess I would like to start with our very first question, which is, had you never heard of the term before? What does secondhand talent mean to you?
Um, Maybe not firsthand, but maybe you've heard of them through somebody else. So maybe a different way of hearing about talent, maybe a back way.
Kind of like
Um,
secondhand information type?
yeah, like you haven't heard about them directly, but you had to hear about it the back way from somebody else.
I actually really like that. I think that's a really First of all, it's an answer we haven't had on the show before,
Oh,
which
okay.
always makes me happy when we get an answer that we haven't had before. But also, I think that's a really cool answer in two ways. And I know you can speak on one of these ways a little bit later in the interview, but a big theme in the show has been how one generation passes down, knowledge to the next generation. So it's kind of how, like an understudy, for example. So I've heard we had Adam Berta, the photographer for Goose, and Chris Quinn on the show last season, and they talked a lot about, how they would give tips to other photographers, at the show. And pretty much everybody we've talked to in the scene has made some kind of reference to learning from someone else. And then the other thing we say on the show, secondhand talent is the talent that is there, but that is often overlooked. So it's people that you usually have never heard of, but yet they're just as essential,
Hmm.
in making the entire show process happen. Um, as I said before, Laurel creates these incredible patches with incredible detail, typically revolving around the band Ween, which, as you all know, is my favorite band. And I wanted to start, Laurel, with asking well, I don't want to assume, but I want to say sewing came before listening to Ween.
Yeah, sewing came first. I was, I think, sewing by hand. I made a lot of little things when I was a kid, and I would sew by hand because my mom and my grandma had taught me how. Um, and then, of course, the sewing box was like this little treasure box that I could get into, and I absolutely loved digging into it and looking through it. And then I would make things like crafts as gifts for people when I was little. And then my dad caught me sewing a little cover for a CD shelf that I had. It was like just some velvet that I had. So I was making like a little wrap to go around it, something decorative
Sure.
instead of the wood. And he saw me sewing that by hand and decided that to buy me a sewing machine after that. So he's often the type
Wow.
to get inspired by stuff like that and go buy me a gift based on something that I'm interested in at the time. So
That's really
he really
that's
likes to
really
nurture
special.
my talent, my skills and talents and interests, and so that's been helpful throughout my life. So I he got me my first sewing machine. I think I was about 20, and or maybe a little bit younger than that, maybe like um maybe 19 or 20. So right around then. And it wasn't long after that that I got into wean, which I think was coming up.
Yeah, so I was gonna so first of all, that's really cool to have a parent that sees that talent or that ability and is like, you know what? That's something. I want to help foster that. I think that's really special. Really cool. Or just a really cool message in general to put out there that if you have a kid that has a vision or has like an artistic talent, help them see it through. Don't let your kids embrace the weird, embrace the things that they might be really good at because you never know what it could lead to. Um, but yes, the next question would be what drew you in to Lean or Queen?
So I my first introduction to wean was like 2001, and I lived in Dallas with my dad and my brother, and my brother's friend liked the mollusk. And so he was showing us the mollusk, and that was it. Like, wean took over my life from there on out. I went home and started looking up on the internet everything that I could find about wean and downloading everything that I could find that wean had done. So I had, a huge folder that I still have to this day. I still have the same folder that I've moved from hard drive to hard drive of all of the old Ween stuff. And I mean, you could probably find it anywhere nowadays to download, or it's on YouTube. But back then, it was like felt really cool to have all that stuff. But soon after I got into Ween, my dad sent me and my brother for our birthday to Colorado to Red Rocks for our first Ween show. And
Wow.
that was when I got a taste of making stuff for shows. And so we made t-shirts with Bob Ross on them. And it was the joy of Boognish was what I changed the text to because I was really big into Photoshop at the time.
Nice.
Changed the text to the joy of Boognish and took those t-shirts. We just made them with like t-shirt transfers on Hanes t-shirts and whatnot. And we just gave them
Sure.
away at the show. Didn't charge anybody for them, but that's what I did. And that's how I got into Ween and how I got a taste for making merch.
So that really kind of came all at once then.
Yeah.
So starting with Red Rock, I feel like that's a really impressive place to start out seeing any band, let alone Ween.
That show was amazing. It was Ween, Tenacious D, and Galactic was the headliner. Ween and Tenacious D both opened up for Galactic. Jack Black had the saxoboom at the time and brought it out later on stage with Galactic, which was really fun.
Amazing.
And Ween went on
Amazing.
when it was still daylight, so I got to see. It was getting dark towards the end of their set, but it was still kind of daylight when they went on. And no, it's just an incredible show. I remember they opened with Buckingham Green, and that was the first song that I ever saw them play live. So it's pretty incredible. And it was at Red Rocks. So even
Yeah.
more incredible.
Yeah, Red Rocks is I've only been once and it was a long time ago, but hands down one of the most impressive venues, I would say, in the United States.
Yeah.
Um I actually don't think I broached this topic on the show before, but my first Ween show was Lollapalooza 2005. And it was a very different experience. You know,
Sure.
I did not realize what was going on. And it wasn't until many years later, after they got back together, that I saw them again. I saw them a few times in the late 2000s. Um, but I remember seeing them again. I think it was the 2016 Aragon shows over with Jeaner's birthday. And night one, they played like a 15-minute version of King Billy. And I
Oh
was like, this is me. Like, I'm
yeah.
here. I am fully in. This is it. Oh, like, I'm like, absolutely, I found my slot. Um, so starting in 2001, which is wild to think that we saw our first shows roughly around the same time, and then at the time of this taping, just a few months ago, we're on the rail together at Salt Shed
Yeah.
to see that same band. So from 2001, how did your trajectory go as so far as your relationship with the music and the development of your art?
So I kept seeing Ween over the years when they would come to town locally. And then sewing was always something separate. It wasn't until about 2018 that the two merged. And I wanted to start making Ween purses.
Hmm.
Um, and that fell in with the embroidery and the fabric. And then patches came along with that because the same person that taught me how to use the machine that I got taught me how to make the patches. So like one a friend that I knew just kind of casually had just kind of met her just gave me an embroidery machine when I went over to her house for the first time.
Wow.
She's like, I don't want this. You sew, you should take this. And I'm like, sure. So I got an embroidery machine. And then another friend showed me how to use the embroidery machine and and then I wanted to make my own artwork. So that required a program on for the computer for digitizing. So my friend showed me how to use that software. And then, it was kind of like all my friends helped me do this
That's
and
awesome.
gave me this boost. And then it just took off from there.
That's great. I mean, you know, and again, there's another parallel here to when I started stand-up comedy. Having those friends and that community behind you is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but in my experience anyway, oh, that was the main driver. That was the most important thing,
Uh,
was friends and family telling me, no, it's what you're doing is good. Like, keep the faith. Like, you've got, and I mean, how important is that boost, to have somebody like to an embroidery machine to like be like you like that they see something that in you.
yeah, it was incredible. I feel so lucky that a friend gave me that embroidery machine because it started off something that has really grown into something that I can be proud of. And I
I
never would
mean,
have had this had it not been for her.
I would say not just be proud of, but I mean, first of all, I am literally covered in your
Right.
patches. I mean, I want to say, objectively, before we asked Laurel to work with us to bring our Dr. Decibel patches to life, um, Steiner and I are both big fans, and we've been buying Laurel's patches since she started making them. Because Steiner and I have been together just about as long. We got together, I think maybe probably just after you started making patches, and we've been kind of stacking them up ever since. And when we came back to the US, we got to meet up for in person for the first time, and I'm so glad that we've developed this friendship, and that you've been able to come over and stay with us, that we've gone to shows together. Um, it really just goes to show how infectious art can be, and how much it can bring people together that may have otherwise never met.
Yeah, for sure.
So today, now we've kind of gone through the arc a little bit. Now I know, as I just said before, we've been to shows together recently. What's your typical calendar like now so far as like creating new projects and going to shows? How often do you get the chance to be out there on the scene?
Last year was a little bit better as far as going to shows because they were a lot closer and it was more
Mm,
manageable.
a lot more Midwest shows.
I've got two kiddos, so and traveling really far away for shows isn't quite feasible at the moment. So unfortunately this year, since they're not coming anywhere close to where I'm at, I don't think I'll be making it to any shows, even though I would really want to.
Yeah.
I definitely will pay for a stream if they do that again. Like if they do the professional streams, I'll stream the
I have
shows,
a feeling
or
they
I'll be
will
on
for the
couch
chocolate and
tour,
cheese show.
or
You
I'll be
know,
on couch tour doing
yeah,
the stream from whoever's doing it. I think Paul Kelly's been doing the stream lately. So if he does it again this year, I'll be watching him, or I'll be watching the professional ones if they do that.
yeah.
And a lot of my inspiration comes from just listening to the music. And I
Mm.
kind of have to be in the mode for it. But like a lot of it comes from after a show. I'll get inspired after a show. One of my best designs, I don't have or I do have one. This one's got some writing on it, but this one was inspired by the 2018 Red Rock show, and
Yeah.
it's got the lightning and the double rainbow. Um,
Very cool. So it's like the moment, like that, like if you were there, like it was this kind of like shared experience that
yeah,
like everybody who was at that show knows exactly what this is.
yeah.
It's awesome. So when you talk about your sewing career, then back to that, I know there's there I know my knowledge is very rudimentary on the subject. So I know there's a difference between sewing and embroidery. But I also know that there are a range of materials that can be used. For example, I know that on this patch we've got, there's obviously sewing, there's some like pieces of fabric as well. On this patch over here, we've got some sparkles in a pouch. I don't have no idea what that represents. And then we've got some here. We've got this patch that's got a bunch of glitter in it. What materials, what fabrics do you use to create these
So
auctions?
I use a pretty big variety. Like you said, some of them are plastic, and they're actually made with vinyl, which is going to be really hard to see on camera, but I've got a couple of them here.
Well, you
And
can see it because the light reflects off of it, so you can
I like
kind of
to
see. Yeah.
capture stuff inside, like
Oh,
glitter and other stuff. Something unique to add to the patches, something a little bit different. And then I also use a lot of batik fabric, which if you don't know what batik fabric is, it's kind of like tie-dye. So here's a really good example of it. You can see that there's just a lot of variety in the
so
color.
that's like this fabric on this guy over here.
Exactly. This
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
green batik that I've got. So I really like using batik because it's such a dynamic background. It's got a lot of depth to it. It's not just a solid color. It gives the patch a lot more, I think. And I use batik in these too. It's just a different kind of batik. It's got stripes on it. Some of them can have designs on.
Okay.
So this one gave kind of a sunset looking background. And then another kind is printed fabrics like the Boognish down here. And that
Yeah.
is actually a little swatch taken from fabric made by my friend Moth Snow over at PutABoogOnIt. She
Shout
makes
out, put a boog on it, and I've got, I believe that, so that would be this little piece right here, right in the center.
that rose is also her fabric.
Sweet. Shout out, put a boog on it.
And she also made my wrap here and makes
Nice.
my hat too. I forgot about the hat almost. But she makes a ton of ween stuff and is really awesome and let me use her fabric in my patches. I got permission from her to use, which is really great because that's brings us back to that friendship helping us and community helping us.
It's about artists helping artists, community helping community. It's like very recently when I reached out to the Ween Archive channel to ask if I could use their remasters and do reactions to them. They're like, yeah, absolutely. This is fans helping fans here.
Yeah,
Um, so I think that's really, really cool that, you guys are working, obviously, I mean, personally, I'm familiar with PutABoogOnIt. And hopefully our audience will take a look at the work as well and, links in the description and peruse. Um, it's really great to hear that collaboration and that kind of like, yeah, let's work together to make something awesome. Because I gotta say, this florist patch, like I said, it was the first one that I got, and I've been hooked since then.
nice. She also let me the fabric in your test tube patch is also by Put a Book on It.
All right, yeah, ah, awesome. I
But then
love these.
it has custom Boognish confetti that I had made.
What strikes me about these every time is that you can really tell the quality of the materials used. Like none of these, because you can get some patches like that you can tell they're loose strings or it's flimsy material. And one thing I absolutely love about these, I've had these patches, some of them on this sweater for more than a year, and not even so much as a seam has come loose on any of them. I mean, and it's like I don't own any other patches that are that durable and that strong. So I mean,
That's good.
really kudos to you and the product that you create because it really you can really tell if you have it in your hand or on your clothes the quality and the care that goes into each piece.
That's good to hear, man.
Well, I mean, look, listen, these patches right here, which are available in super limited quantities on secondhandtalent.com. We decided to work with Laurel to create these because they're handcrafted, they're handmade, and we knew that we could absolutely trust that the quality would be just top notch for every single one. And we were absolutely correct. And it was absolutely a pleasure to work with you. And I'm so glad that we were able to get that done. And again, it gets back to this artists helping artists, friends helping friends. Um, I know we wouldn't rather have it any other way. It's incredibly important to us, just like it was having our friends over at Mife Designs on board with creating our pins and our friends over at Tenacious Toys providing us little guys like this Pumpers over here to have on as desk candy. You know, uh, it really gives me this great sense of like, how we lift each other up. And one of the big goals of this show is to platform people such as yourself who are creating fan art, people like Boog on it. Um, because right now you're in fan zone of kind of what you're known for and the other areas of secondhand talent that we cover, photography, audio, lights, merch. These are typically all in the context of live music. And we want to kind of bring that out and show people like the actual human beings behind that work that goes into creating the merch they enjoyed that they purchase. So that who's making it sound good, who's lighting up the room so well. It's important work that, like we said at the beginning, the interview really contributes as a whole to the live music experience.
Nice.
Well, Laurel, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. For all of our viewers and listeners, you can check out Laurel's stuff at laurelbayleaf.com, and you can find that link in the description of this episode. Laurel, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome, man. It was a pleasure.
And to all of our wonderful listeners and viewers, this is Steiner with another episode of Secondhand Talent. We'll see you next Wednesday. And that's a podcast.
Awesome.